Welcome to another episode of Women Investing in Women. Robin and I take great pleasure and joy to bring you another episode. And today, our focus is going to be on women who have inspired us, women who have invested in the generation of women that we are, and who have set the course for everything we have become and everything we are able to contribute. So today's conversation is about the giants whose shoulders we stand on. Take it away, Robin.
All right. I am so just beyond thrilled to be introducing Kate Kirkham, Dr. Kate Kirkham. And she was the professor when I was in my MBA program 40 years ago. And at Brigham Young University, and Kate was the professor who mentored all of us young women in the MBA. There were 22 of us. It's the biggest group of young women they had at BYU that year. And she mentored every single one of us, and not just us, the women in the years prior, the women in the years after. Also, the Women's Research Institute at BYU, Kate helped organize that and help lead that. They also created the Dyer Institute to help organizations function better. Anything that had to do with women, helping organizations, Kate would dive in and be part of it. So I am just beyond thrilled and honored to have my former professor here with us. And Kate, we normally ask people what their challenges have been toward the end of the show. But you have had some very life-changing challenges. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you have gone through?
Okay. Some of the hearing I have a problem with because so if I don't what you say, if I start what you don't want to say, feel free to interrupt me. I thought one of the most important things in my life has been the help of people who are really committed to change and who can come forward at a time when you need them. And that to me has been an astonishing time. Sometimes I think nobody's helping, we're all in this alone. But I think in our experience we had and others, we are making change by how we behave. And that's really important. So that's my first item, is that what a blessing it is to have a colleague that works with you that will be, as I assume you both will be, contacting each other and deepening the well of resources that you have. It's really amazing. So I'm always happy about that. So is there anything you wanted to ask me about the first part there about having committed colleagues?
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Kate. Appreciate you joining us. And to build on this conversation, as you were mentoring and educating women 40 years ago in the MBA program, that truly was cutting edge, unheard of. What was that journey like? And over the 40 years, how has that changed you? And how have you been able to invest and groom amazing women like Robin?
Well, I think one of the amazing things has been the ability to remake a system. It's odd, but we have different ways organizations are functioning now, and if we don't pay attention to it, we're going to lose the impact we had as ongoing before. And one of the connections for me is that I find it odd that sometimes men reject the growth of women as intellectual learners. So I worry about that because a couple of feedback sessions I've had with some people have been, oh, well, now it's the white male's turn to do this. And why are women getting in the way? I think I'm saying that more brutal than it is, but there is a ton of a humming noise about that they don't know how to relate to a new role of women. I think that's doesn't have to happen, but if unless somebody takes a challenge at looking at that, we're going to recycle everything just with a different face. So
Mhm.
that's my biggest concern right now is the integrity of the population, the integrity of what men are doing and women are doing. That lasts. It isn't just a teen radio ad or TV ad or image. We have to work harder on getting an image that fits with the work we want to do to change. And it cannot be hostile. It's got to be integrated. They got to feel like they come and ask somebody about it, both women and men. So I'm worried about the connection we have to different populations that in the past we served well, and maybe we haven't done as well now. But I think a focus session like you're starting with this organization is very helpful because it gives an opening for those people who don't want to be seen on one side or the other, but who want to come forth in the middle and really grow. So
That's awesome. And I know that one of the challenges that when I visited you several years ago, you had just barely learned that you had Parkinson's.
yeah.
And you knew that you knew, okay, I have this, it's going to progress, and how am I going to live my life? And I have been so inspired with, you haven't just crawled into a hole. You have continued to write poetry. You've continued to inspire women. And how is that journey? What motivated you to continue being you, being Kate, even though there was this really severe diagnosis of your life?
I have been so supportive and so so helpful of having this disease. I hate to have it, but it's given me a lot of lessons to learn things. There are people who don't understand a different form of illness, and so that has made it hard to interpret. Parkinson's doesn't come and go like you take a pillow and it gets better. Parkinson's is eating at your entire dopamine system. So I think that's been an opportunity for me is to stay longer in it. Sometimes Parkinson's people lose their first 5 years and they're gone. I've had 15, and I feel lucky to have had that, even though it's been hard. But I think we're learning a lot about this disease too, and so I'm hopeful about that.
Thank you so much for being open to share that with us, Kate. And to me, this conversation with you is twice as inspiring because I am a sole caregiver to a Parkinson's patient husband who has just been diagnosed. And we're going through the early stages. We are trying to figure this out. So as women who are investing in women, and we are talking about how women can lift each other up, you are so inspiring. Even after 40 years of teaching, you're still inspiring women of our generation in terms of understanding and having the courage to deal with these kind of diagnoses, because life happens. We don't get to plan everything. What advice would you have for men, women, and women as caregivers in both roles we women play? How to deal with these kind of unplanned challenges?
So I think one thing is to be very confident that you are important as a person and that you can seek resources that you want. You don't have to wait for everybody. And I'll tell you a story about two of them in a minute. But I think the other thing is having a chronic disease compels you to be patient with people. It just compels you because they are often overlooked. Or I was at a program seminar at the place where I am, and then I said, watch what happened. And some of the people who came in didn't have a way of getting a chair or getting seated or getting something said to them. And that kind of isolation needs to be corrected. We need to kind of go up and meet people that we don't know what their difference is and do it in a hospitable and gracious way. I mean, so that's my concern about how we act toward one another, given we have a chronic disease.
Yeah. I remember when in school, I remember that you would talk a lot about how women would be treated differently than men. For example, we had this exercising class where we're having to do some problem solving. And if a woman solved the problem, one of the men would come up and kind of double check her work. Yeah. And when the exercise was over, you pointed that out. well, what's going to happen in the company if every single time a woman does the job and someone has to come in and check it? It's inefficient. Can you just not trust that the woman is doing a good job? So I would say, in your experience over the years, in continuing to deal with women and deal with organizations, women and organizations, what changes have you seen in that area where that has changed, where they're listening more to women and they're taking their word for it, they're having confidence in their competence?
Well, I'd like to share with you a story that covers that for me. We were in an ongoing session, and I asked some of the people who were there to step out in the hall. I asked all men to step out in the hall and asked them just to visit for a while and what we do. And there was one woman out there with them. But then when she came into the room, when she first came in the room, I told her to, pardon me, when the men first came in the room, I told them to act as they do on their daily decision making. Okay, and they came in and she just got looked at and she didn't get any eye contact and they just avoided her. Then I took them down the hallway and I told them the men to act with an improved stance toward women. And they said, okay, we can do this. But that meant just connecting your eyes and dotting your T's a little bit, going over to see if it's done correct. And so the women in the hall who were watching this, I could tell them they were getting very agitated. And so the last group, I said, oh, just be helpful, guys, right now. She came in the room and said, sit down, shut up, we're going to do it this way. And she came in with such force because the absence had been increased for her. And the men didn't think it was funny, but I thought it was a great example of you have to be able to see past the surface to get any change. And that means you, the person who's concerned and the person who feels they're right, they have to join in a way that sees each other and makes sense. So we had a lot of fun with that exercise.
I am so glad to hear that you still embrace a sense of fun and joy.
Yeah.
So that's where I am going with my next question. How do you tap into your inner joy and the inner light as you're going through all of these life changes that are certainly not always pleasant?
Yeah, I think I have a great opportunity to practice learning. And some people don't have that after a certain age. They don't practice and say, what do I need to learn next, or how am I behaving about it? But I think I've been blessed, is no other word I can think of, blessed to have this opportunity experience, because I've learned a lot and I've been able to share some of that with people I work with, and that's important. I'm just excited about the opportunity people could have if they step out of their own environment or interaction and start working with each other. And there've been some MBA groups that were just out of sight perfect. They kept they kept looking at people, they kept adding value to it. So I want that model to be out there and not penalized because they're different about doing things. I get concerned when the reaction of different other has to the group. It's just that they don't. They lack I feel they've gotten some help over the years. They're not the way they were when I was younger, but their help has been an inch deep. It needs to be wide. They've learned some little things that they can do, and they feel like they should be accomplished for that, and they should. But they just also here to have help others be confident and to share it, look at them, and expect performance, expect a appreciation of their skill. And if they can't do that, then we help them do that. We help them figure out ways to do that. That they can come together, they can have seminars, they can have opportunities to meet, but they have to believe in it. Because if you go as a private person with no obligation to those around you, that is less effective in business, is less effective in other media like school and church. It's just we need to sharpen our directness without having people feel injured by it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Kate, what's kind of popping up for me right now is, was there something in your background, like how you were raised or where you were raised, that created this motivation for wanting to help women and wanting to help young girls, really mentoring us young women and other, other your peers as well at the time. So what is it that, if you can pinpoint it, that was the driving force or the impetus or the motivation to want to help women?
Yeah, it's one of the things we have to rehearse more. I watched a young Sunday school teacher. She came over, she found out who I was. She said, "Can we talk to you?" And within 5 minutes, we had her concern on the table and what she was trying to do. And she got so excited, she tried out the skills when they were offered opportunity in this class. So I think it's having awareness that one could impact someone's behavior. We don't have to wait till they perfect it. We can do something that helps them spread that motivation. And I think it's mostly a belief about who you are and how that got formatted, and little things like my mother's friend, who was a wonderful old lady. She came to me one day when I was 5 years old and said, "You are very smart. I want you to work well at school." So that kind of person can help a lot. So
Beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that. Now, a little bud told me as we got started earlier that you love poetry. And to me, poetry is the soul painting a picture with words. So talk to us about what got you into poetry and why you continue to do that.
Okay, say the invitation was about what?
About poetry.
Poetry.
I had told Cass that you write poems,
Mm-hmm.
you write poetry,
Yeah.
and some has even been published. I think that's amazing. So tell us about your poetry, kind of what got you into it, and if there's this, just tell us more about your poetry and your adventures there.
I think I was a poet from the beginning, but I only got to express it. I only took the courage to express it later on in life. But I have a couple of poems. One of them related, not in front of it, one of my favorite one that got credit for it. The beginning is, I hear a word that we shared so long ago as a piece, and if I could collect the pieces, I would know I would have you again. That's one. I have some long ones that are kind of fun to write, but mostly I write about the emotional side of interacting with other people. I don't do trees and things that are not movable, but I try to dig to the core of how somebody feels about something without injuring it, without saying we're setting a judgment. That's not what I like. I like just being available to people who want to learn.
That is so lovely, and poetry truly speaks to everybody. So thank you for doing that.
I want to tell 2 more stories. Do you have time for that?
Oh yes, go ahead. We'd love to hear stories.
One of them was that I was working with Corning, New York population, very East Coast population, and I got excited about doing a program we were doing. We were doing a stage program between 3 stages. The first one was come and listen, second one was come and talk, and third one was what have you learned to try it out. And so in the try it out part, one of the managers, it was an integrated national sales thing, and all the African American people were at one table. There were 2 empties there, but this white male manager got up, walked over, and said, he said, "Would you like to join us?" Thinking he was doing his best integration possible. Do you think you can join it? To the white man said to the black male. Well, he said no, and he went and sat down. Well, the next morning when we were in session, this manager came to me and said, I called him over to my table, and I thought that would be the answer. I began talking with him, and the African American said, you could have sat down. And the contact didn't come from his interest. It came from showing off in a way, not totally, but the manager was flabbergasted. So like I tried, I went out and did this. Yeah, but you could have taken advantage of being at a table with all black people. And that matters here, that you can include the whole group and aspects as they're needed. So that was my one story. And I never forgot it because he just was so impacted by it. And we had done, what we did was Corning is an all-white, was then an all-white area to work in. We got contract with the local innovative dance program. It was. They all tried to do different things. They came to our study and agreed to act out a role play of embarrassment of an employee they'd seen get bad treated. They would show that us, and it was powerful. They came in, and the group was going to be our help. They came help. They were dressed the way they did. They talked the way the department did it. They were working with, and so this gentleman came up to me and said, "How come you didn't respond to my invitation?" And this is when the young man said, "You didn't sit down." And that really floored us for the rest of the session, because the people who came to act out were so good that one manager said, "I don't even recognize my employee. She's so different when you come in." And that's been a great source, is people can see it. They can see it happening. So I've been, maybe it's my poetry side, I can help people create abilities that they don't think they have, because I can look at them and work with them. And it's been great.
Kate, it sounds to me like you have really been very innovative across the course of your career. You know, this conference you described, where there's one stage where people are learning, another stage where then they go talk about what they've learned, and then they go try it out. So these innovations in how you teach, in the case studies, in the exercises. I remember the exercises that we did in your classes. You know, I'm going to interrupt myself right here. In the MBA program, there are lots of people in finance and in investments and in accounting and statistics, and just a few of us in organizational behavior. And the finance guys were so mad, and I call them the quant jocks. Anyway, they were so mad that they had to take these organizational behavior classes. This is a waste of time. We could be taking another finance class. It's really a waste. You have to waste 2 classes, one each semester. Well, then in the year between the first year and the second year of the MBA program, you have to go get an internship, and then beginning of the second year, report back on how it went, what happened. Well, to a person, every single one of those guys said what they learned in their organizational behavior classes was the most important thing that they used during the summer when they got thrown out into the real world. And so all of us, OB, the OB types, we felt totally vindicated. But at any rate, but Kate, you've been so innovative in creating different kinds of exercises and experiences for people to have a change of mind, have a change of heart, put on a new pair of glasses and see the world differently and act differently. How have you been, like, how do you come up with these new ideas? What inspires you and gives you the genius of doing what you do?
I think one of the things was not to fail to observe. You have to watch people. You have to look at them and say, how does this relate to my MOB class or that? You have to bring the data forward that's in you. And that way you can talk about it to others. If you don't harvest your own journey, then you can't relate. And so I've always had been enough patience, sometimes not days, but enough patience to encourage this person to contribute beyond their current meaning. And so a couple of the people who do the money stuff, they got it. And those were only 1 or 2 of them that came out and forth and said they wanted to do something. But that did it. I mean, they saw what happened and they learned from their experience. And my role was to be a prompt to it, not to be a judge of it. So it was always helpful to do that, to see what is people doing here that is infecting them, and how do we treat that. So I really enjoyed that. I want to say a little bit about power. We don't have a very good society for clarifying the meaning of power. We have an archetype headline spot. This is power, this is not power. But the most important power I saw over the years is discernment. You have to be able to look at something and separate the pieces. And that power to do that, to reorganize where people are going, is very important. If they just come in and repeat what they've always heard in the textbook, they won't apply it to who they are now. And that's what needs to happen. Whether you sit down and talk to somebody or you take a vacation where you can get more interaction, whatever you do has to be focused as well as helpful. So if that makes
I
sense.
love that. Makes beyond basic sense, Kate, and the discernment power to observe, engage, and truly integrate that into everything we do. That by itself is such a powerful message. And this is what Robin meant, that you have so much wisdom that we're all going to benefit from this. As we think of bringing this conversation to a close, if you were to share 3 pieces of advice for women who are coming right behind you to continue to build on what you have done and continue to make this a better world, what are the 3 pieces of advice you would have for us and women younger than us?
Well, I think that we have to have the ability to see who we are and how we impact others, and then take that to a group or to somebody else. I think if you do it without thinking through who you are, you disserve those who are waiting for help. But the other thing you'll have to do is to prompt them, as I was trying to do. Prompt them, have you tried this? Have you done this? Have you seen this? And to take that insight, if they get it, back to their work, back to their home, back to their church. So they have to be aware and then act on that awareness and have helpful about it. I think that people who they only touch, if they only talk about the big level, we won't get there. And in my model, I have 3 levels that they work on: an individual personality, one; second one up is a group dynamic, and third one up is a system change. So a lot of people now are doing wonderful work at the first level. They can go out and be more friendly to someone they see on campus, but are they really working as a group to achieve that? I don't know, based on our experiences. But the third one, and it gets little attention and needs a lot of focus. What are the institutional boundaries that we are crossing and trying to cross to create a culture where things will be different? And that one's hard, because people don't want to work that hard around how they see the system. But one good article, by the way, is it's called Linkings, the importance of linking, and it's hosted by one of the airlines that has had an employee who was supposed to take the oxygen mask to the front, and so but the person giving it out just said, "Here, take this box to the front," and didn't do any further talking about it. And the person went and put it on the plane, and the plane crashed because it was the wrong box for that flight. But no one had the linkage to say, this has got the airplane force you need to put this there, and then they would have gone to where it was supposed to go. So I think that problem of linkage is really important, that you link somebody to yourself to learn, and you take some risks at how that will help you, and the institution should hear it.
Yeah, I think that systems change, and that is something that you really emphasize. Systems change, and oftentimes if we can change the system, then individuals and groups can change. Change. So I'll pass the baton over to you, Cass. I know the time always flies by too quickly, and this has been just so delightful being with you, Kate.
Thank you.
Oh, Cass, you're muted.
Thank you so very much, Kate, for making the time to talk to us, to share your wisdom. And Robin and I have thoroughly enjoyed, and we know that our audience are going to benefit from your nuggets of wisdom, your ability to show up with such joy.
Can I do the golden nugget?
Yes.
Yes, okay. One of the major problems right now is that people don't know how to handle conflict and how to deal with compact intensity around it. But all you have to do in my book is look at the conflict situation and ask yourself, there's 2 types of conflict. One is emotional and one is individual. Yeah. Okay, so if a person has to deal with conflict, they can sort it out this way. What's the task here? That would have to come first. What's the support I need and what's the final one. And sometimes people skip right the test when they say, oh, I know that. I took a class, I know that. But we don't know until we try it out. So dealing with conflict is two-dimensional, either tactful or emotional. You need to separate those parts, because you can work on it better if you know what the emotion is, or if you have the ability to do the work. So thank you for letting me say that, because working with conflict has been a big part of what I've done.
Oh, that is fabulous. And we are living in a polarized world. We are living at a time where every simple conversation is turned into a conflict.
Right.
And so actually, Kate's words of wisdom, her golden nugget, is our message to take us off the air. Anytime we have an opportunity to avoid conflict, but if we're in the middle of one, make sure that we truly are embracing both the emotional aspect and the tactile aspect, knowing life doesn't work out the way it thinks. Life doesn't work out the way, a thought experiment works. And how do we best embrace it? How do we practice and take the time to practice with one another? When we can resolve small conflicts, then we are working our way up to dealing with major conflicts.